For topic 7, I want to look at solving trigonometric equations using a graphing utility. Now, we have already looked at this using Desmos, okay? Desmos is easy. Desmos is almost too easy, okay? So Desmos is not necessarily something we want using on tests because it can do like too much, okay? So we know how to do this on Desmos, and I'll show you how to do this very problem on Desmos, but I want to make sure you know how to do it on your calculator as well, so that you're not left completely in the dark if you have something that we can't use like the unit circle for. Okay, so right here it says in some cases the techniques used in this section will not help us solve trigonometric equations like when we mix algebraic and trigonometric expressions, and that's what's happening in this example down here. So in cases like this, we're going to have to look at some kind of graphing utility. So Desmos or our calculator, and again, I don't really love the idea of Desmos on a test because it does too much. Okay. So the question here is solve the following equation. We have 3 times cosine x plus x equals 4. So we've got this extra x here that's kind of the mixing the algebra with the trigonometry, okay? And we want to solve this rounded to 2 decimal places. Well, essentially we get this graph right here and we want to look for where basically two things intersect. So let's talk about this first on Desmos, okay? So if we go over to, do I have Desmos up still? Yes. So if we go over to Desmos, okay, what we have here is we have the equation 3 times cosine x plus x equals 4. And what we want to do is we want to take the value just 4, and we're going to make that one whole line on this equation. So we're just going to make it quite literally a horizontal line, and then we're going to take everything else and let that be the function that we graph. So we're basically going to graph two things. We're going to graph the function, and then we're going to graph the line y equals 4. So what we have is for the first line, we're going to graph 3 times cosine x, whoops, and then we want to go plus x, and that's going to be the first equation. And then we want to basically see when this intersects the line y equals 4 because the original equation is equal to 4. Well, we have the graph right here, okay? And so this point right here is 4.53358 comma 4, okay? So if we were to solve this equation for x, we would say when x equals, and I think it said 2 decimal places, so solve the equation, yeah, solve and round to 2 decimal places, we would say when x equals 4.53, we're good to go. We get the value, we get the equation equals 4, okay? So Desmos is like too easy, okay? So I don't want you all using Desmos on tests, okay? I don't want you to rely too heavily on Desmos. Desmos is a phenomenal tool that helps us learn and understand. It gives us this nice visual, but it does too much. It makes it just too easy. So use Desmos as a tool, not as like, don't let it do too much for you, okay? So let's switch to the calculator, okay? So in the calculator, first of all, make sure you're in radians. And I'm in radians for sure. And then we want to go to y equals. And what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly what these directions say. They say for y1, type in the left-hand side of the equation, which is 3 times cosine of x, and then plus x. And then for y2, we're going to type in just 4. Okay? Now, we can play around with windows if we want, but I'm going to go ahead and graph because I think I played around with my window. No, I haven't played around with this window. It must have been somewhere else, but we can see the graph here, so we're good. So graph it. If you can see what you need to see, then you're good. If not, play around with your window. So this is the equation. And so the blue line is the left-hand side of the equation, essentially, and then this horizontal red line, that is where it equals 4. So we want to know when does this function equal 4. So we can look for a point of intersection. So unfortunately, this isn't Desmos, and I can't just click right here and get it to tell me what the solution is. Instead, we have to tell the calculator to find the point of intersection. So to do that, we need to go to this calculate screen. So if you look at this top row of buttons, we have y equals, window, zoom, and trace. And if we look at the trace button, the blue second function is the calculate screen, and it'll calculate things for us, which makes this actually really quite easy. So it's still not as easy as Desmos, but it's not bad. So we want to go second trace, and we're looking for a point where two graphs intersect. So we want to go to option 5. And we want to get this little blinking star to mosey over really close to the point where the two lines intersect. Okay, so right there is pretty close to where we intersect. So I'm going to hit enter. And then the cursor automatically jumps to the other graph. So we hit, oops, we don't do what I just did. So let's go back to the graph. We're going to go second trace, option 5. And so our graph, it says, are you on the first curve? We are. And just make sure you get close to that point of intersection and then hit enter. And then the cursor automatically jumps to the second curve, which is the y equals 4 graph. Hit enter. And then it's like, hey, would you like me to guess what the solution is? Hit enter. And it will then give us that ordered pair of 4.533 blah, comma, y equals 4. So we would say that the solution to this equation, when this equation really does equal 4, is when x equals 4.53. Okay, so make sure you do have up your sleeve the way that you can use some kind of a graphing utility to solve these really kind of complex trig equations where the methods of, using quadratic form or using identities or whatever won't work for us. Okay, so make sure you know how to use your graphing utilities. Again, don't rely too heavily on Desmos. Don't let it do all the work for you. You know how to also use your TI-83 or 84. Okay.